The galaxy was in turmoil. Across vast stretches of space, alien civilizations watched in fear as the shadow of a brutal enemy grew larger. For years, the ruthless conqueror known only as the Thraxian Empire had swept through planets, leaving destruction in its wake. The once peaceful galaxy was now on the brink of collapse, and the leaders of various alien races knew they needed help. Desperate, they broadcast a call to all corners of the universe. We need warriors. Join us, and together, we will fight for the future of all civilizations. The message reached every corner of the galaxy, but it was Earth's response that would surprise everyone. At first, the alien leaders laughed at the idea of Earth sending soldiers. They saw humanity as weak, primitive, and far behind in technological advancements compared to the more powerful races. The humans had no galactic fleet, no advanced weapons, and no alliances with any of the major galactic powers. How could they possibly help in a war that had already lasted for centuries? But humans were known for something the galaxy's leaders failed to recognize: resilience. While the galaxy's rulers debated and argued, ordinary humans across Earth heard the same message: join the fight for survival. They saw it as a chance to protect their planet and secure a future for their children. The response was immediate, with millions of men and women volunteering to fight. One of them was Lieutenant Marcus Stone, a veteran soldier who had served in multiple conflicts on Earth. He had seen his fair share of battles, but nothing prepared him for what was about to unfold. His government received the call to arms, and it didn't take long for Earth's leaders to mobilize the military. The humans would soon find themselves among the stars. Stone stood with his fellow soldiers in a massive hangar, gazing at the spacecraft that would take them to the front lines. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen: sleek, metallic, and far more advanced than any Earth technology. The humans had received help from their alien allies in building these ships, but it still felt surreal to be aboard something that could travel across the galaxy. The alien races had already begun to gather on distant planets, preparing for what would be a battle like no other. But as Stone and his fellow soldiers boarded their ship, they felt a sense of determination like never before. They had no idea what awaited them, but they knew one thing for sure: they would not back down. "We may be new to this," Marcus whispered to his comrade beside him, "but we've fought wars on our own planet. This time, the stars will see what humanity is made of." As the engines roared to life, the ship lifted off the ground, and the humans ventured into the unknown. The galaxy's leaders were about to discover something they had underestimated. When the stars needed warriors, humanity unleashed its might. The journey had just begun. As the humans aboard the starship made their way deeper into the galaxy, doubts began to rise among the alien races. They had watched humanity's response to the call for warriors with mixed feelings. Some found it amusing, while others felt uneasy. After all, how could a species so young, so unrefined, stand alongside the ancient, powerful races of the galaxy? The first stop for Earth's soldiers was a distant outpost on a planet called Viorna. It was home to the Juran, a race of tall, strong, and highly disciplined warriors known for their combat prowess. They were one of the most respected races in the galaxy and had long been part of the alliance against the Thraxian Empire. The humans, upon arrival, were greeted with cold stares and open skepticism. The Juran leaders stood tall, their sharp eyes scanning the human soldiers as they disembarked. Lieutenant Marcus Stone, who had always been a leader among his peers, felt the weight of the Juran's gaze. The humans had come here to prove themselves, but it was clear the Juran were not impressed. "You are the ones who answered the call?" a Juran commander asked, his voice deep and heavy with disbelief. Marcus nodded, trying to keep his own doubts in check. "Yes, sir. We're here to fight." The commander looked him over carefully. "You have no fleet, no advanced weaponry. How do you plan to help us in this war?" The question was pointed, but Marcus didn't flinch. He had known from the start that humanity would have to prove itself, and he wasn't about to back down now. "We fight with what we have. We fight with our courage, our determination, and our ability to adapt." That's what makes us strong, Marcus replied, his voice steady. The Juran commander raised an eyebrow. The human's answer didn't satisfy him, but the Juran had little choice. The Thraxian Empire's forces were advancing quickly, and they couldn't afford to be picky. The alliance was already stretched thin, and every warrior counted, even if they came from a species as untested as humanity. Very well, the commander said reluctantly. We will train you. But you will be under our command, and you will prove your worth on the battlefield. The humans were taken to the Juran training grounds, a vast area surrounded by alien technology and weapons. The training was grueling. The humans struggled to keep up with the Juran's demanding physical exercises and combat drills. They were often outmatched by the more experienced alien warriors, and many of them felt like they might not be cut out for the war. But Marcus knew something the others didn't. Humans had an unmatched ability to adapt. While the Juran soldiers followed strict, predictable strategies, the humans quickly began to think outside the box. They experimented with new tactics, blending human ingenuity with the alien techniques they were learning. One day, during a live combat drill, the humans surprised their Juran instructors. A group of human soldiers, led by Marcus, used their training in unconventional ways, creating a distraction and outflanking their alien opponents. The humans worked together, using their resourcefulness and teamwork to gain the upper hand. The Juran commanders watched in shock as the humans turned the tide of the battle. They had expected failure, but instead, they saw something incredible: human ingenuity in action. It was something no one had anticipated. As the training continued, the humans proved that they weren't just participants in this war. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Juran, once skeptical, began to respect them. They had seen what humanity was capable of, and they realized that Earth's warriors were far more than they had first believed. The humans had come to the galaxy as underdogs, but they were proving that they were more than capable of standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest fighters. The real battle was about to begin, and humanity's strength was just getting started. The days on the alien training grounds were long and grueling. The humans struggled to keep up with the rigorous schedule set by their Juran trainers. Every morning, they were awakened before dawn, and for hours, they worked on improving their physical endurance, combat skills, and knowledge of alien technology. They had to adapt quickly, learning how to use advanced alien weapons, navigate foreign terrains, and master combat techniques that were unlike anything they had ever known. But despite the exhausting training, there was a growing sense of determination among the human soldiers. They knew they were in a race against time. The Thraxian Empire's forces were closing in, and every moment spent on training was crucial. If they wanted to help win this war, they would need to push themselves beyond their limits. Lieutenant Marcus Stone, who had led his soldiers through many difficult missions back on Earth, now faced his biggest challenge yet. He had always been a leader, but this was different. The stakes were higher than ever before, and he knew that his leadership would be tested in ways he couldn't imagine. In one particular training session, the humans faced off against a group of Juran warriors in a simulated battle. The Juran were strong, fast, and experienced, and they dominated the humans at first. The human soldiers were quickly overwhelmed, and it seemed as though they might be defeated. But Marcus wasn't ready to give up. He had seen humans overcome impossible odds before, and he believed in their ability to do it again. He called out to his fellow soldiers, rallying them to keep fighting. "Don't back down. We're not here to fail," he shouted. "Use what you've learned, think outside the box, and push harder than you ever have." The humans took his words to heart. Instead of relying solely on brute strength, they began to use their creativity. They set traps, created distractions, and combined their different skills to confuse their opponents. In one moment, Marcus used a Juran weapon in an unexpected way, launching a surprise attack that sent a group of Juran warriors tumbling. It wasn't the perfect strategy, but it worked. The Juran commanders were stunned. They had never seen such a display of ingenuity from the humans. It was clear that, while the humans might not have the physical power of the Juran, they had something else, a raw creativity and adaptability that the Juran hadn't anticipated. As the training continued, the humans began to hold their own against their alien counterparts. The Juran, once dismissive of them, now started to see the humans in a new light. It wasn't just their strength or their speed that impressed the Juran. It was their ability to think on their feet and improvise in the face of danger. One of the most remarkable moments came during a combat exercise where the humans were tasked with infiltrating an alien stronghold. The Juran had set up complex defenses, but the humans found a way through them. Instead of storming the gates head-on, they snuck in using stealth and teamwork. Their success was a victory not just in the battle, but in proving that human resourcefulness could make up for what they lacked in raw power. The Juran commanders, now convinced that humans had something special, began to train them even harder. They knew that the humans' ingenuity and adaptability could play a critical role in the war against the Thraxian Empire. It was no longer about how strong the humans were. It was about how they could turn the tide of battle with their unique approach. The humans had come to the galaxy with nothing but their courage, and now they were starting to show that they were more than ready to fight alongside the galaxy's greatest warriors. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven that it was a force to be reckoned with. As the humans spent more time training with the Juran warriors, something started to shift within the Alliance. The humans had proven themselves in combat, but now their growing success began to stir up unease. The Juran were not the only race involved in the war against the Thraxian Empire. Many other alien factions had joined the fight, each with their own abilities, traditions, and pride. And not all of them were pleased with the humans' rapid rise to prominence. One of the most powerful alien races in the Alliance was the Pharaohs, a species of psychic beings whose minds could control matter itself. The Pharaohs were known for their wisdom, their strength, and their pride. They were highly respected throughout the galaxy, and their influence was vast. However, the Pharaohs looked down on the humans, believing them to be too raw, too impulsive, and too unpredictable to be trusted. At a joint council meeting on the planet of Karanis, where leaders from all the allied species gathered to discuss their next moves in the war, the tension was palpable. The Pharaoh's representative, a tall figure named Alorith, addressed the room with his calm, calculating voice. "The humans have shown skill in combat," Alorith said, his eyes narrowing. "But they lack the discipline required to be effective in a war of this scale. They are not warriors. They are soldiers, and soldiers are disposable." The statement sent a ripple of discomfort through the room. Marcus Stone, who was present at the meeting with the human delegation, clenched his fists. He had heard the whispers about humanity being seen as a burden, but hearing it spoken so openly stung. "We may be new to this, but we are not disposable." Marcus spoke up, his voice firm but measured. "We fight for a future that includes all of us, humans, Pharaohs, Juran, and every other race in this galaxy. If we don't stand together, we'll fall one by one." Alorith's eyes flashed with annoyance, but he said nothing. The room fell silent for a moment. It was clear that not everyone was convinced. There were factions within the council who had already started to question humanity's place in the war, and their doubts were only growing. As the meeting continued, the humans couldn't ignore the feeling that some of the alien races viewed them as a necessary evil. They weren't truly trusted or respected, just tolerated. The Juran, however, remained loyal to the humans, seeing their worth through the lens of battle, but even they couldn't change the minds of the other species so easily. Back at their training base, the human soldiers felt the pressure mounting. They had already overcome so many obstacles to get here, but now it seemed like they were fighting not just the Thraxian Empire, but also the doubts and prejudices of their supposed allies. As Marcus gathered his team that evening, he could feel the weight of the situation. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to prove that they belonged, that they deserved to stand among the galaxy's greatest warriors, not as outsiders, but as equals. "We can't afford to lose sight of why we're here," Marcus said, looking at his soldiers. "We've already proven we can fight. But now we have to show them what humanity stands for. We're not just going to be a footnote in this war. We're going to make history." The humans were determined. The tension between them and the other alien races might have been rising, but one thing was clear. Humanity wasn't going to back down. They had come to the stars to fight, and they would fight for their place in the galaxy, no matter the cost. The time had come. The humans had trained, and their abilities had been tested. Now, the galaxy was calling on them for the ultimate test of their worth. The Thraxian Empire had made its next move, attacking the planet of Veridin, a critical stronghold that stood in the way of their path to dominance. If the Thraxians took Veridin, it would be a blow to the entire alliance, and the war might shift in their favor. The Allied forces, including the humans, had to stop them. The humans and their alien allies gathered in a massive fleet, prepared to defend the planet at all costs. The air was thick with tension. The Duran, the Pharaohs, and other species stood side by side, but even with their combined might, it was clear that the Thraxian forces were overwhelming. Their warships were enormous, heavily armed, and they had the advantage of superior technology and experience. The battle ahead seemed like an impossible fight, but the humans were determined to prove themselves. Lieutenant Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the human ship, looking out at the vast space surrounding Veridin. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction, and the Thraxian warships loomed large. It was the first time the humans had been thrown into a battle of this magnitude, and Marcus felt the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. "We're ready, sir," his second-in-command, Sergeant Rachel Lee, said as she stepped up beside him. She was a skilled fighter, and like Marcus, she had pushed herself to her limits during the training. The two of them had formed a strong bond with their team, and now they would need each other more than ever. "Let's show them what we're made of," Marcus replied, his voice steady. The humans may have lacked experience in space warfare, but they had something that couldn't be measured: determination and creativity. And that was something that the Thraxians hadn't counted on. The battle began with a brutal exchange of fire. The Thraxian fleet moved in with precision, unleashing a barrage of weapons on the defending ships. The Allied forces fought back fiercely, but it was clear that they were being pushed back. The humans, however, didn't panic. They quickly adapted, using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver the enemy. Split into smaller groups. "We can't win this by charging head-on," Marcus barked, using his knowledge of tactics to direct the human ships. His voice cut through the chaos, and the humans responded with a level of coordination that surprised even the Duran. The Thraxians were used to straightforward battles, where brute force determined the victor. But the humans didn't play by those rules. They used the environment to their advantage, hiding in asteroid fields, launching surprise attacks, and confusing the Thraxians with sudden maneuvers. The humans had no fleet of their own, but their creativity was a weapon more powerful than the Thraxians could have imagined. On the surface of Veridin, the ground forces faced similar odds. The Thraxian troops were ruthless, but the humans fought with unmatched courage. They formed tight, organized squads, using their knowledge of urban warfare to counter the Thraxians' overwhelming numbers. Marcus and Rachel led the charge, moving through the ruins of Veridin's capital, clearing enemy forces with precision. It was a battle that seemed unwinnable, but the humans had something the enemy didn't: a burning desire to protect their home. They fought not just for themselves, but for the survival of everyone in the galaxy. The Thraxians, who had underestimated humanity, were in for a rude awakening. Hours passed, and the battle raged on. But slowly the tide began to turn. The humans, with their unorthodox strategies, were making a difference. The Thraxians, once so confident, were now scrambling to adjust to the humans' unexpected tactics. By the end of the day, the Allied forces had secured a victory. The Thraxian fleet was crippled, and their forces on the planet had been pushed back. The humans, once thought to be unfit for such a grand war, had proven themselves to be vital to the victory. Marcus stood on the deck of the human ship, looking out over the planet below. "We did it," he said quietly, but his voice carried the weight of their accomplishment. They had not only survived but had also shown the galaxy what humanity could do when pushed to the brink. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson that day. Never underestimate the power of human ingenuity and determination. The humans had arrived as unknowns, but now they were a force to be reckoned with. The war was far from over, but the victory at Veridan marked a turning point. The humans had earned their place in the fight for the galaxy's future. The victory at Veridan had been hard-won, but the human soldiers knew that the war was far from over. While they celebrated their success, the Thraxian Empire was already regrouping. The massive Thraxian fleet that had retreated from Veridan had not been defeated. They had only been delayed. The Thraxians were known for their brutal tactics and unrelenting drive, and they would not take their loss lightly. The news came through the human fleet's communication system late one night. The Thraxian forces had launched a surprise counterattack, targeting key human outposts along the outer rim of the galaxy. Their plan was simple: take out the humans before they could get comfortable, and crush any hope of further resistance. The Thraxians were betting that humanity's recent victory had been a fluke, and now they intended to prove their superiority once and for all. Lieutenant Marcus Stone stood in the command center of the human fleet, his face grim as he listened to the briefing. Sergeant Rachel Lee was beside him, her expression hard with determination. They had tasted victory, but now they were about to face their first real test of endurance. The Thraxians have already attacked 2 outposts. The fleet commander reported. "We're next in line. We have only a few hours before their fleet arrives." Marcus took a deep breath. The pressure was on. The humans had to act quickly. The last thing they could afford was to let the Thraxians gain any ground. If the humans were to have any hope of winning this war, they needed to show their strength once again. "We need to prepare for a full-scale defense," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Get the fleets in position. We'll fight them back, just like we did at Veridan." Rachel nodded. "We can do this. We've proven ourselves before. We'll do it again." The next few hours were a blur of activity as the human fleet scrambled to prepare for the incoming assault. The warships were readied, the ground forces fortified their defenses, and the humans braced themselves for the inevitable. The Thraxians were coming, and this time they were bringing their full force. When the Thraxian fleet arrived, it was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Thousands of warships appeared on the horizon, their dark silhouettes blocking out the stars. The Thraxians had come with everything they had: reinforcements, advanced weaponry, and an unrelenting will to crush humanity once and for all. The battle began almost immediately. The Thraxians launched wave after wave of attacks, their ships unleashing firepower that was unlike anything the humans had faced before. The humans, however, fought back with every ounce of strength they had. The space around them lit up with flashes of lasers and explosions as the 2 fleets collided in a brutal struggle for survival. "Stay focused," Marcus shouted over the comms. "We can't let them break our lines. Hold steady." The humans responded with the same creativity and resourcefulness that had allowed them to win at Veridan. They used the asteroid fields and the gas clouds around them to create ambushes, launching surprise attacks on the Thraxian ships. The humans worked together seamlessly, despite the odds. But even with their clever tactics, the humans were struggling to hold their ground. The Thraxians were relentless, and their superior firepower was starting to take its toll. The human fleet began to lose ships, and the morale of the soldiers began to falter. "We need reinforcements," one of the commanders cried, but it was clear that help wasn't coming. The humans were on their own. As the battle raged on, Marcus realized something crucial. They couldn't keep fighting a defensive war. If they were to have any hope of winning, they needed to strike back hard. It was time for the humans to take the fight to the Thraxians. "Rachel, we're going in," Marcus said, determination in his voice. "We're going to hit them where it hurts. Prepare for a full assault. We're not running anymore." Rachel gave him a sharp nod. She knew what he meant. It was risky, but it was their only shot. If they didn't act now, the humans might lose everything. With one final push, the humans turned the tide. They launched an all-out attack on the Thraxian flagship, using every trick they had learned during their training. In a daring move, Marcus led a small group of ships straight toward the heart of the Thraxian fleet. They fought their way through, taking out key weapons and defenses. The Thraxians, caught off guard, scrambled to regroup. And in that moment, the human fleet seized the opportunity to strike. They had proven themselves in battle. And now, they were proving they could fight back, no matter the cost. The humans had won a hard-fought battle, but the war was far from over. After the Thraxian counterattack, Marcus Stone and his team knew that the real challenge was still ahead. The Thraxians had been pushed back, but they weren't defeated. They would return, and next time, they would come stronger. The human fleet had suffered significant losses during the battle. Several ships were damaged beyond repair, and many soldiers had been injured or killed. Despite the victory, morale was low. The humans had proven they could fight, but at what cost? Marcus knew that if they didn't turn the tide soon, the Alliance might not be able to hold out much longer. As the remaining ships limped back to their base, the human leaders convened to discuss their next steps. The Juran and Pharaohs were present, along with other alien representatives. The room was filled with tension, and there was a sense of urgency in the air. "We can't keep fighting like this," one of the Juran commanders said, his voice filled with frustration. "We need more resources, more ships, more weapons. The Thraxians will crush us if we don't act quickly." Marcus stood in the back of the room, listening to the conversation unfold. He knew that the humans couldn't rely on the alien races forever. They had to take control of their own destiny. But how could they do that when they were outnumbered and outgunned? "We don't need more ships." Marcus finally spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "We need a strategy that catches the Thraxians off guard. They're expecting us to keep defending. What if we turned the tables? What if we attacked them instead of waiting for them to strike first?" The room fell silent. The alien leaders exchanged uncertain glances. The idea of an offensive strike against the Thraxians was risky. The Thraxians were powerful, and their defenses were nearly impenetrable. But Marcus' words struck a chord. The humans had always been resourceful, creative, and willing to take risks. "You want to strike first?" one of the Pharaoh's representatives asked, skepticism in his voice, "against an enemy that outmatches us in every way." "We have to," Marcus replied. "The Thraxians are used to us being on the defensive. It's time we showed them that we're not just going to sit back and let them dictate the war. We fight on our terms." The room was quiet for a moment as the leaders processed Marcus' words. Finally, one of the Juran commanders spoke. "Perhaps we can work together to create a new plan. A surprise attack, as you suggest. But we will need every bit of help we can get. The Thraxians have not only the numbers but also superior technology." Marcus nodded. "I understand, but we can't wait any longer. We need to hit them now, while they're still recovering from their defeat. If we give them time to regroup, we'll never have another chance." The plan was risky, but it was humanity's best shot. The Allied forces would launch a surprise strike against the Thraxian homeworld, aiming to cripple their central command and leadership. It was a bold move, and it meant that the humans and their allies would have to rely on their greatest strength: creativity. The fleet began to assemble for the assault. The humans worked alongside their alien allies, creating new tactics and adapting alien technologies to suit their needs. They knew that the Thraxians would be expecting a straightforward attack, so they developed a plan to use deception and speed to catch them off guard. As the day of the assault neared, the humans couldn't help but feel the weight of what they were about to do. They were about to face the most powerful enemy they had ever encountered, and the stakes had never been higher. Marcus stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. The entire galaxy depended on the success of this mission. They had no choice but to succeed. "This is it," he said, turning to his team. "The future of the galaxy is in our hands. We fight not just for Earth, but for all of us. We can do this. We will do this." With that, the fleet set course for the heart of the Thraxian Empire. The humans were ready for their greatest challenge yet. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to reach its climax, and the humans would prove once and for all that they were more than just survivors. They were warriors. The day had come. The fleet, now fully assembled and ready for the final assault, stood at the edge of the Thraxian Empire. The tension was thick as the human forces, alongside their alien allies, prepared for what would be the most important battle of the war. They had trained, fought, and bled together, but nothing could prepare them for the enormity of what lay ahead. Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out over the vastness of space. The stars seemed to stretch endlessly before him, but in the distance, the dark silhouette of the Thraxian homeworld loomed. It was the heart of the Empire, and the humans and their allies were about to strike at its core. The Thraxians had no idea they were coming. "Everything's set, sir," Rachel Lee said from her station, her voice steady. "We're ready to launch." Marcus nodded, his mind focused on the mission. "This is it. We hit hard, fast, and we don't stop until we reach their command center. We cannot give them the chance to regroup." The humans had spent weeks planning this assault. They had gathered information, tested new technologies, and developed strategies to outsmart the Thraxians. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would break through the Thraxian defenses using speed and deception. The Thraxians were expecting another defensive strike, so the humans intended to use their unconventional tactics to their advantage. As the fleet made its way toward the Thraxian homeworld, the nerves of the soldiers were palpable. This was a one-way mission. There would be no turning back. The humans knew the risks, but they were prepared to face them head-on. The moment of truth arrived. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, right on top of the Thraxian defense grid. The enemy was caught completely off guard. The Thraxian ships, still recovering from their previous defeat, scrambled to respond. But it was too late. The humans had already launched their attack. "Now," Marcus barked, and the fleet surged forward, unleashing everything they had. Lasers, missiles, and fighter ships flew toward the enemy ships in a relentless barrage. The Thraxians tried to regroup, but the humans were already in their midst, striking at the heart of their fleet. "Keep pushing forward," Marcus ordered as he watched the chaos unfold on the screens before him. "Don't let them breathe." The humans fought with everything they had, using their creativity and adaptability to confuse the enemy. They knew the Thraxians were stronger, but they were determined not to let their opponents win. The humans used the environment to their advantage, slipping between the massive ships and exploiting every weakness in the Thraxian defenses. The battle was intense, but as the hours passed, the tide began to turn. The Thraxians, overwhelmed by the humans' tactics and sheer persistence, started to falter. Their central command was in disarray, and their leadership was scrambling to regain control. But it was too late. In a final desperate attempt to end the conflict, Marcus led a small strike force toward the heart of the Thraxian homeworld, directly to their central command. They fought through waves of Thraxian ships, narrowly avoiding destruction at every turn. Finally, they reached their target. "This is it," Marcus shouted. "Take out their command center." The humans launched a final decisive strike on the Thraxian central hub, crippling their ability to coordinate the defense. The Thraxians, with no leadership and no strategy, were now vulnerable. The remaining human forces finished the job, wiping out what was left of the Thraxian fleet and ground forces. The battle was over. As the dust settled, the human fleet stood victorious. The Thraxian Empire had been dealt a crippling blow, and the humans had proven their place in the galaxy. They had fought with everything they had, and it had paid off. The galaxy would remember this day as the turning point of the war. Marcus stood in silence, watching the destruction of the Thraxian fleet on his screen. The victory was hard-earned, and it had come at a great cost. The humans had lost many ships, and many brave soldiers had fallen in battle. But in the end, they had succeeded. "We did it," Rachel said quietly, her voice filled with awe. "We won." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of the victory settling in. "We didn't just win for ourselves. We won for everyone. For the galaxy. For Earth. This is just the beginning." The humans had proven themselves. They had faced impossible odds and triumphed. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not just a species to be feared, but a species to be respected. And with this victory, the galaxy's future was now theirs to shape. The victory over the Thraxian Empire had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. It wasn't just a military win, it was a statement. Humanity had proven itself to be not only a valuable ally but a formidable force in its own right. The Thraxians, once the most feared empire in the galaxy, were now reeling from their crushing defeat. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power had shifted. But for Marcus Stone and his fellow soldiers, the victory was bittersweet. They had won the battle, but the war had taken its toll. Many ships had been lost, and countless lives had been sacrificed. The cost of their triumph was high, but it was a price they were willing to pay to secure the future of the galaxy. Marcus stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The stars glittered peacefully, a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle they had just fought. He couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment, but there was also a quiet sadness in his heart. So many friends, so many soldiers were gone. They had given everything for this victory. Beside him, Sergeant Rachel Lee stood silently. She, too, was lost in thought. The sounds of the ship's engines and the quiet hum of the crew around them seemed distant, as if the weight of the war still hung in the air. "You ever think about what comes next?" Rachel asked softly. Marcus turned to her, his expression serious. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've won," she said, "but there's so much more to do. The Thraxians are finished for now, but the galaxy's still out there. It's not just about fighting anymore. It's about rebuilding." Marcus nodded. She was right. The war was over, but the work had only just begun. The galaxy had been scared by years of conflict, and it would take time to heal. The Allies, once wary of humanity's involvement in the war, now saw the humans as essential partners in rebuilding the peace. Over the following weeks, humanity played a crucial role in the reconstruction efforts. The humans' creativity and determination, which had helped them win the war, were now being put to use in restoring shattered planets, repairing fleets, and establishing new alliances. They worked alongside the Duran, the Pharaohs, and many other races, forging bonds that had once seemed impossible. But not everyone was pleased with the new order. There were still factions within the galaxy that resented humanity's rise to power. Some races, especially those who had been content with the old power structures, feared that the humans would dominate the galaxy. Marcus knew that this would be a long road ahead, filled with challenges and setbacks. The victory was only the beginning of humanity's true test. As the weeks passed, the human leaders gathered once again, this time not to plan battles, but to discuss the future of the galaxy. The once divided factions now sat together, forming a council that would shape the galaxy's future. Humanity, with its unique blend of innovation and resilience, was now at the table as an equal. "I know we've made a lot of enemies along the way," Marcus said, addressing the council. "But we've also made allies, and that's what we have to focus on. We need to build something lasting, something that goes beyond the war. We can't let this peace be fragile. We have to make it strong." His words resonated with the council members, and slowly, a new vision for the galaxy began to take shape. It was a vision of cooperation, of unity among diverse races who had once been at odds. Humans, along with their alien allies, would lead the way to a brighter future, one where war no longer dictated the course of history. As the meeting concluded and the leaders dispersed, Marcus stood on the balcony of the council hall, gazing out at the stars once more. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of hope. The war had been won, but the galaxy was still a long way from being whole. The humans had a part to play in that future, and as Marcus looked up at the stars, he knew that humanity was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy was entering a new era, and humanity would be at its heart. They had fought for the stars, and now they would fight for the peace they had earned. The galaxy had been forever changed. What began as a desperate fight for survival had become a tale of triumph, a story that would echo across the stars for centuries to come. Humanity had faced impossible odds, had been underestimated by the greatest minds of the galaxy, and yet they had emerged victorious. The Thraxian Empire, once the most powerful force in the universe, had been defeated, and a new era had begun. As the dust settled and the Allied forces worked to rebuild the broken pieces of the galaxy, Marcus Stone stood at the heart of the new alliance. His role in the war had earned him respect and admiration from races far and wide. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a symbol of humanity's strength, a testament to what could be achieved when people were united by purpose and determination. But Marcus didn't care about accolades. He had lost too much to feel pride in the victory. His friends, his comrades, many of them had not lived to see this day. They were the ones who truly deserved the honor, the ones who had sacrificed everything for the galaxy's future. He carried their memory with him, a quiet weight that reminded him of the true cost of peace. As he walked through the bustling command center of the new United Council, he couldn't help but notice the changes taking place around him. The once divided factions now worked together, their differences set aside for the common good. The Duran, the Pharaohs, the humans, all of them had come together to form a governing body that would ensure that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. Rachel Lee, still by his side, turned to him with a smile. "Hard to believe how far we've come," she said. Marcus looked around the room at the diverse leaders gathered around the table. It was an unfamiliar sight. For the first time, there was hope, not just for the humans, but for everyone. They had all made sacrifices, but together, they had forged a new path. "Yeah, it is," Marcus replied, his voice soft but resolute. "But it's only just begun." The new council, which now included humans, had one goal: to prevent future wars, to create a lasting peace where all races could thrive. They knew it would be a long road. Trust had to be built, alliances had to be solidified, and tensions had to be healed. But the people of the galaxy were willing to try. They had seen what humanity could accomplish, and now they were willing to give them a chance to lead, to help build a better future. In the months that followed, humanity's influence in the galaxy grew. The humans brought new ideas, fresh perspectives, and above all, an unwavering drive to improve. Their innovative technologies and creative solutions helped rebuild shattered planets, establish peaceful trade routes, and restore the damage done by the Thraxian Empire. Slowly, but surely, the galaxy began to heal. But there were still many challenges ahead. There were still species who didn't fully trust the humans, and many who feared that they would one day grow too powerful. Marcus and his fellow leaders knew that it would take years to fully unite the galaxy, and that peace was a fragile thing. It had to be nurtured, defended, and protected. Yet as Marcus stood at the edge of the council room, looking out over the galaxy that humanity had helped to save, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had fought for their place in the stars, and they had earned it. The galaxy was entering a new chapter, one where humans were no longer just survivors, but leaders, pioneers, and builders of a future that had once seemed impossible. With a deep breath, Marcus turned back to the council table. The future was bright, and humanity's journey had just begun. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face, but one thing was certain: humanity would face them all, together, and they would never back down. The stars were theirs now, and humanity had only just begun to reach for them.